A Virginia mother who is also a Chinese American and lived through Cultural Revolution made a strong voice against critical race theory that resonated in the last few days. We believe that's the biggest nightmare for CRT. Why do we say that?
Earnings of Americans have been coming down for 5 consecutive months. Is this transient or the start of something much worse?
Welcome to Wei
and Kathy show.
All right, so let's jump into this story that has been happening for a couple of days. Okay, so a Virginia mother in the school district in Virginia spoke out. We heard just 1 minute, right, at the public hearing, and then she really started something that has been resonating until this very moment. So, Kathy, let us know what's happened.
Yeah, let's just listen to a short clip of her speech.
This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
Yeah, that's Xi Van Fleet. She's a resident of Loudoun County in Virginia. And actually, her son already graduated from the local high school in 2015, but she chose to speak publicly at a recent school district meeting. And as you can see, her speech drew cheers from parents. So actually, the Loudoun County School District has been accused of pushing the racist policy because of its promotion of the critical race theory courses. So in the past few months, this debate has been going on. And Xi Van Fleet, she actually really saw something very dangerous. Let's listen to the next clip from her speech.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. Growing up in Mao's China, all this seemed very familiar.
Yeah, she saw something very familiar because she grew up from Mao Zedong's China. And Xi Van Fleet fled China at the age of 26. So she compared the current version of the United States, the current division of the United States with her growth experience during Mao Zedong, and who was the most brutal dictatorship in the history, and how she compared, why she felt it's familiar, right? So let's continue to listen.
The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. During the Cultural Revolution, I witnessed students and teachers turn against each other. We changed school names to be politically correct. We were taught to denounce our heritage. The Red Guards destroy anything that is not communist, old statues, books, and anything else. We are also encouraged to report on each other, just like the Student Equity Ambassador Program and the bias reporting system.
Yeah, what she said, actually, anyone from China who has some experience with the communist regime ruling and would really resonate that. And so for people like Van Fleet, we escaped communist China, but now we would feel that, just as Van Fleet said, it's a kind of experiencing communism here. That's something really heartbreaking for people like her.
Mm-hmm. And so I really feel very, very dear when I hear her, heard her talk there. And, in this kind of public hearing, which Wei, went to often in the City Hall of San Francisco, 1 minute means 240 words, okay? You only got 240 words to say, then they're gonna ring some bell or mute your mic and you have to get off. And so within that, among that 240 words, how do you express yourself? That's pretty much the chance of your speaking out. and apparently she made good preparation. But it's still only 1 minute, so hopefully with a few more minutes we can just illustrate this in more depth or in more width. So yeah, she, I just let me call her just she, okay? She pretty much is the same generation as we and Kathy. So we grew up among the Cultural Revolution, and then basically went through a review period in the early 1980s. So in which very in close range we can grasp what we just lived through, the nightmare that we just lived through, okay? Well, he said it's the same critical theory to divide up people. What she meant is, back then we got our critical theory in China is called the class struggle, 阶级斗争, class struggle. What does that mean? Means the 阶级斗争, the class struggle is permanent, it's always there. No matter what, this human society will always have it. There will be always oppressor class, and there was always the oppressee class, oppressed class, okay? And then the two sides cannot how to say cannot be reconciled. The conflict cannot be reconciled. They have to, one side have to eliminate the other side until the end of it. So the same thing with the critical race theory, which pretty much said racism, race issue will be always there, will never go away. Okay, so we have to change our social structure to counter that. And then, so the idea is, over there in China, you got the oppressor, which is who are the landowner, factory owners, the oppressed, which are the farmers, and then they just have to hate each other and fight each other until the end of it. Of course, until the landowner, factory owner, they are done away with. So in this country, it's the same thing. Okay, the white people will have to be discriminated against, and they have to be, dealt with until its so-called equality is achieved. And then in terms of changing school names, yes, not just school name, things went far beyond. Not just a school name, company name, street name, your personal name. So when she was interviewed by Tucker Carlson, right? I'm sorry, the Sean Hannity in the Fox show, and she mentioned about when she was young, she really wanted to change her name to be a politically correct name, which is a woke name. All right, what's the woke name? It's very familiar. It's called something like a Wei Dong or Wei Hong, and
which means protect Mao Zedong.
Guarding Mao Zedong.
Yeah.
And Wei Hong means guarding the red flag, something like that. So in this country, you got millions of people whose name is Wei Dong. Way more than we have John or Tom here, and then that's because it was politically correct. So she said, fortunately, my parents say no, you don't change your name. So she still got her name, which is what? Shi what?
Shi Van.
Shi Van, yeah, Shi Van. Yeah, so lucky for you, you were able to retain your name. And then, so it's just crazy. Even 2 years after the Cultural Revolution, Chinese people looked back in disbelief. So what kind of a nightmare we lived through? We were just like crazy people, changing all those names. And then in terms of destroy heritage, exactly, by putting down the, statue of Robert Lee and Washington, Lincoln, those are really small matters compared to what happened during the Cultural Revolution. Literally, all traditional things. Whenever the Red Guards are those young people, okay, Red Guards, and they can reach out, they destroy them, okay, they destroy them. And then after they destroy so many things, so many heritage Chinese people's, Chinese history, then Mao Zedong said, you young people, you should go to get trained in the what he said, in the vast countryside where you got to get the most, get the most training and grow the best way. Essentially, what is that? It's called labor camp. Okay, they were driven into the rural area and become farmers for 10 years. They lost those young people in their 16 or 18s. The next 10 years, they lost all their college education and any education during their youth. They become pretty much worthless people, with some minor exception. So that's what happened. When communists use those young people to accomplish their goal, then they will do away with them. This is what would happen if we allow America to develop that way. And then in terms of reporting each other, kids reporting on parents, kids cause parents to be jailed or even to be beaten to death, because kids think that's very revolutionary.
Yeah, and also students report on their teachers,
Yeah.
so that get them into trouble,
Mhm.
and that considered a heroic action.
And even, they use the same exact terminology as we use today, right? As we know that we got this wokeness, right? Wokeness in Chinese, in the Cultural Revolution, is called 觉醒, 阶级觉醒. The whole name is called class wokeness. Okay, so there's a different level of the wokeness. The higher level you get, the better treatment, the better lifestyle you got. Because the party said, oh, you are the most woke people. And then you will get status, you will get a position, you will get your power. And if you're low level of wokeness, you will live in a much more miserable state. So yeah, so this is a little expansion of Xi Wen's words. And what do you think? And that's so we really what Xi Wen was saying that in that public hearing in the school district, if you can tell, is exactly what Wei and Kathy has been trying to keep sharing with you in the last half a year.
Right, and actually, Xi Wen Fleet's action is not alone. Actually, it's not a single case. In the Loudoun County, for the past couple months, the many parents actually starting to stand up and spoke out in the public hearings or public meetings, because actually this Loudoun County, maybe I just give you a little bit background if you're not familiar with that. It's in the northern part of Virginia. It's pretty wealthy part of the state. It's since 2008, its median household income is number one among the cities with a population of 65,000 in the United States. Yeah, and so I would, I haven't looked it up, but I would assume there are quite some Chinese Americans or Asian Americans families living there, because it seemed to be a good neighborhood with a decent income, and probably the school district previously is probably be good. But in a recent year, this Loudoun County is really in a hotbed because of its effort of pushing critical race theory. So what they have done, for example, in March, actually, the Loudoun County superintendent made it very clear in the public meeting that they are not adopting the CRT framework. Okay, that's on record. And the next day, March 24th, the Virginia Department of Education published a press release saying that the state board adds culturally responsive teaching and equitable practice to teachers' standards. As you can see, we did not see anything like a critical race theory, but those words actually equivalent to what the critical race theory.
Culturally responsive teaching and equitable practice.
Yeah.
So this is the way. Let me draw some similarity here, okay? Back in China, for the communists, they always use the most beautiful, positive term to describe the most heinous thing. Like in San Francisco, right? We got this 大麻, right? This
Marijuana.
Marijuana. When they sell marijuana, they put a billboard on the street. They call it the Azure, right?
Well, it's the names for the marijuana delivery companies. Always it would be like Easy or Amuse. All those seems to be very positive words.
Very, very good at picking terms. Okay, they pick the positive and beautiful term to describe, to hide their thing, to decorate their thing, to package their thing. But it is that thing that smart people will always be able to recognize, and we need to know that. So why do they use so many, how to say, ambiguous, who knows what you're talking about type of words? If they are truthful about what they insist, why don't you just say it? Why do you use so many decorative terms to wrap it around?
Well, sometimes they are pretty straightforward. Let's take a look at one post that the Loudoun County School Board member Beth Bartz shared a post from the Loudoun County Public Schools Committee. It's called the Minority Student Achievement Advisory Committee. Okay, and it says, there is strength in numbers, and we believe wholeheartedly that united we can and will silence the opposition to achieve their mission of advancing equity through action. I don't know how way you feel. When I read this sentence, it makes me feel like in China. It's like, united we can and will silence the opposition. Since when in United States, we can just publicly, people can just say that and they don't feel there's anything wrong with that, right?
Yeah, traditionally Americans say we can and will safeguard, the right of speaking of the opposition.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you, but I will defend to death your rights to speaking out, right?
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is the 6 school board members of Loudoun County, they joined a private Facebook group called the Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County. Again, it's a nice word, right? Anti-racist parents. However, in this group with 600 members, including some parents, teachers, and of course the 6 school members, what they are doing is actually specifically targeting parents opposing to critical race theory. And it actually sparked an investigation by local law enforcement. So actually one of the parents found that her personal information was, publicly shared. Let's watch. Not this one. Oh, okay, that's okay. Yeah, this is another thing is, let me just continue because one of the moms she almost burst into tears to find out that she had 3 kids attending in the school district. But just because of her expressing the criticism of CRT, her personal information, including her kids, where they go to school, all being publicized, and including some of the personal pictures. And the other thing is what this gentleman, the father, was talking about was the Loudoun County actually paid a firm for over $4,200 for our folks group, trying to investigate to investigate the discrimination, but only African Americans and the Latino Americans students and the parents are allowed to attend. Yeah, and so the other thing is that the Loudoun County Public School, they propose a dress code prohibiting offensive clothing. Okay, but they said, then what's this offensive clothing about? In saying that it cannot distract from the board's mission of instilling values necessary or appropriate for polite civil discourse or political expression, okay, in a school context. However, there's no standard of what offensive means. It solely depends on the accuser. People can just freely say, well, I think this word is offensive to me, then you cannot wear it. So, a lot of different things, even the advisory board that we mentioned, the so-called Minority Student Achievement Advisory Board, they specifically wrote a letter to the school district demanding that the teachers should be dismissed if they criticize the school district's equity training inspired by the critical race theory. And so actually, on a side note, in this school district, they actually did something last month. just because one of its physical education teacher who expressed his personal stand, publicly expressed he won't buy in those trans students. Okay, he said he's it's just against his personal belief, and he think that's a lie to students, and he would not lie to his students, and he think that's a torture to students, and he was immediately expelled from his position. Luckily, last week, he got some help from alliance who is support free speech, and the local judge actually granted that he should have his freedom of religious freedom as well as freedom of speech, and demanded the school to give back his position.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these, really made the local parents really outrageous, and they are recalling these 6 school district members. So that's what's happening in Loudoun County, and I read about how some nonprofit organizations is actually trying to make the Loudoun County as a model for the rest of the country, how to fight against critical race theory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe let's read some response from our audience. And so what do you think? Yeah, we want to know that how you think about. And Doc Watson said, we must do everything necessary to stop this propaganda being forced upon our children, right? And I'm just still searching something. So basically, there's another person. Okay, I don't quite remember whether he's a parent or not, and he said, we cannot believe all this CRT, this critical race theory teaching is happening under our nose. He said, we gave our kids to you, and we assume that you're gonna do your job, do a good job.
Right.
Now it is only take this pandemic and this so-called remote teaching, we realize what you have been teaching our kids.
Yeah,
That's how we realize it.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the parents from Loudoun County as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is indeed because of this remote teaching due to the pandemic makes those parents realize what their kids are being taught at school. So not only Loudoun County, actually other moms are speaking up around the country. There's another mom from New York, Carmel district. Her name is Tatiana Ibrahim. And her speech is really powerful. It's like over 10 minutes speech. And like in the beginning, she pointed out right directly to the heart of the problems. I want to share with you a few clips from her speech. So C7.
Let's see.
You work for me. I don't work for you. You have a duty. We are entrusting our children to you. We teach our children morals, values when they grow up to commit crimes and end up in prison and kill a police officer. It's our fault? No, it's your fault. You're emotionally abusing our children and mentally abusing them. You're demoralizing them by teaching them communist values. This is still America, ma'am. And as long as I'm standing here on this good ground earth of God, I will fight. And this is not the last of me you will see.
Yeah, and the school board members trying to cut her off a few times. And she really just, countered them right in their face. And then she said she will become their nightmare.
I will become your worst nightmare because I'm going to stand here and keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And if not, I can actually go out, get signatures. What happens if we stop paying school taxes? You're going to arrest all the community? The majority of the community? No, I don't think so. This won't be the last of me. I want everyone to know what's going on because you're hiding it. You're hiding it. You know who does that? Communists do that. That's what you're doing. Recruiting children. Children. You're recruiting children to hate our police officers. How dare you? You have a librarian in the high school passing out Black Lives Matter pins. When a student asks for a blue live, why would I have that? Why would she have that? What did you do for police week?
Okay. Yeah, so look at her. She's really, really fearless, and some of her points is really to the point. She, compares the communism, how they hide things. That's exactly, it's really on point, and how they recruit students, young people, to achieve what they try to do, as we already shared with you. So at the end, the mom just said, you come to the wrong school district, we won't let you to accomplish what you try to do. So I really feel, it really make people feel that, just like she said, CRT met the worst nightmare because the moms, the parents already realized and starting to speak up. So that's the beginning of the failing of CRT. That's what I think.
Yeah. So Miss Shevin Fleet spoke out a few days ago. That seems to open the floodgate. And then there's many people who come forth. And I feel really proud, allow me to say this, and that's Chinese American, okay, who came to the public hearing and say her word. And I think I also watched her interview with Sean Hannity, and she was very, very, I encourage you to go search, okay, like a Fox News, Sean Hannity, and then her name. And so she said this, critical race theory is racism. It's the racism of today, okay? And let me just expound that a little bit. So pretty much this critical race theory telling black people as a race that they will be forever viewed as a second class, and then tell the white people as a race and they should be discriminated against now. This so-called reverse discrimination. So, by both ends, this is clearly racism. CRT is racism, okay? So that shall not be tolerated and should not be accepted and should not be advocated. And so I met with one of our viewers, right? It's the other day, Michael, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michael in the San Jose downtown, and then so I discussed with him. Maybe you are watching that, right? So I ask you this question. So why the good people are kind of voiceless? Because of the fear, right? As we all feel that because of the fear, what will happen to my job? What if I got canceled out? And I have a life to go about. I have to take care of my family and all those concerns. Very understandable. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, if we allow this happen, what will American become of?
Yeah,
and time goes by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, this question I think is very real. I actually had the opportunity to interview the spokesperson from the U.S. PI, which is an organization called the United States Parents Involved Education. They are now dedicated to try to stop the critical race theory all around the country. So April Field, that's the spokesperson, I asked her specifically this question, what if, some of the parents are concerned, but then they have fear. So what's her suggestion? So she basically saying that, one thing is the number counts. She would encourage parents to work together, to maybe go to the school board meetings together, so that when they speak, they won't feel alone. And the other thing is, they actually, US PI is their organization abbreviation. They actually provided a parent guide and the resources to fight critical race theory. So there's a real, some very constructive, detailed suggestions there. One thing is gather facts. She said when you are equipped with facts, then you will be less fearful. And the last thing she mentioned, that because this is the fight for the United States future, for your children's future. So you just have to put aside the fear. So that's April Field's suggestion.
Yeah, I think good comment there, and I want to add on to it. I think it's not really the threat. The threat is not really there. Allow me to say this, okay? Compared to what we went through in China, okay, we really don't feel too much threat, but we feel the fear for the threat. We're just afraid, okay? And many people ask Kathy, were you afraid? You know, when we started this media 20 years ago, okay, we were, we rise against the Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, right? Who has been, ruling China for 7 decades, and they have our family, they can reach our relative in China, and so on and so forth, and then they are spies everywhere in America. They ask us, are you afraid? We said, to start this thing, the first thing you do is you overcome your fear, which is we put that thing aside, and then only in that way we can do the work. So if we're afraid of losing our job today, we could completely lose our world, especially our children will lose their free world in the future. The world will fall into darkness. Let's show the F1. There's a chart. This is Venezuela. Okay, and Hugo Chavez got his power in 1999. Then through several rounds of so-called constitutional reform, he solidified his power. And now with his successors, so pretty much 2 of them control this country, this wealthiest country in South America in the last 20 years. And then this is how the economy is doing. You just go to the dust. America will become of this if we don't speak out. Okay, when we see the wrong thing, we really, just like the lady just said, this is still America. Really, This is still America. We have not lost our freedom. We still have them. It is the fear of the threat that disabled us. That has disabled us. But think about what are we going to lose down the road. This is will be 1,000 times than possibly just losing our job today. If we lost our job, it just take a few months to find another job. That's not the end of the world. That's not the end of our life. But down the road, that could be the end of our world. So what I want to say is that we really cast aside this fear, or this fear of threat. We have to do what we need to do. America is pretty much in the cultural war, or say ideology war, right? I'm doing a constitutional piece, a 45 episode piece on the side. Okay, I have not got that done yet. So when I was researching the material back in the 1776, okay, the colonists at that time, they faced the same thing. They got their life to go about. Why they got a trade to do? Why have fuss with the UK? I mean, England, right? They need to make money from the trade. So they do their soul searching, they decide to take a sacrifice and speak out against the king back then. And then, it's a lot of sacrifice. But, when you have a war, you got casualty, right? And we're not losing our life. We just lose potentially our job and got a little, some bad word saying against us.
Yeah, like...
That's as much as goes today. It's nothing compared to the stake that we face today.
Yeah, and that reminds me of the comments that the living tank man, Mr. Fang, when I interviewed him, I asked him about this question. When you tell the truth, you got some consequence, and he said it's something he feel that it's bearable. He said if you just consider this type of sacrifice, just comparing to the larger picture, and he feels that it's still worth to do it. And if you're really afraid of the consequence, then the consequence can really come to you. Yeah. So if you are fearless, then the communists, they feel they cannot do anything to you, and actually then you win. So that's also based on our experience. And Mr. Fang, he lost his legs, but he's still not stopping telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the last DM, you said, why haven't Kathy and Wei been invited on Tucker? They can speak for a large area of Chinese Americans in California and especially San Francisco, right? And let the Fox viewers know what is up with them. Yeah, good point. We haven't got invitation for interview, but I do want to say this, just like a Xi Van Fleet, Mr. Xi Van Fleet, just like a Kathy and Wei. In certain sense, I think we who lived through that nightmare, another type of nightmare, we lived through the communism and the Cultural Revolution. We are the vaccines for this American communism virus. So we are the vaccines. If there's a chance, we will speak out. We'll go to the school district public hearing. We'll go to Tucker Carlson's show. We'll go to Sean Hannity's show. Whatever it is, we'll speaking out because we know what is at stake. Yeah. So this is also
and
actually
maybe help us to spread the word of our channel and make it under more people's radar. And
yeah, and also actually in terms of our mentality. Okay, I do this because as a payback to the freedom that this country has given us. Yeah, so fear is the last thing that we have on our mind. We have our appreciation for for this country, and we want to speak out by show that thanks by speaking out. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably the last land that we still have our freedom. And that's why we really feel the responsibility and the duty and our gratitude to this country, which offered us this opportunity. And we really have the duty to protect it with you together. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have some other piece of news which I just very quickly go through because it has to do with the information today, the topic today. So what happened is the last 5 months, actually there's wage growth. In the meantime, there's this inflation, 5% price growth in the year over year in the last month. It's highest level in 13 years. So when you offset the price growth with your wage growth, the earning of American have been going down for 5 consecutive months. So I show you the Venezuela's GDP number, okay? And that's something in the future if we don't stop the communism, growing here. They don't call themselves communism, right? They call themselves liberal, progressive, and critical race theory, this or that. It's just the same thing, okay? And but as good a citizen, we have to insist on what is right, say what is right, and do what is right. That's our duty. And okay, that'll be it. I don't want to say too much there. It's just some bad news, the beginning of the bad news. But I think that those are enough to prompt us into action. Go to the school district hearing room, public hearing. Mm-hmm. Go to the city council. Run for school district. Sit there on the stage yourself, and take things into your hand. Do a citizen's job.
Yeah, maybe I just give you the last update of in all 50 states what's going on with the CRT. By today, at least 4 states, they already banned teaching of CRT. That includes Florida, which just passed a bill yesterday by the DOE, Department of Education, Arkansas, Idaho, Oklahoma. So in these 4 states, if you live there, you should be proud, and you probably feel a little bit more released. Then in some other states, they are either debating whether to ban CRT or they are considering passing bills to ban CRT. So that includes states like Michigan, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Iowa. It's a long list. It's about 20 states. So the fight is still going on. So if you are in different states, maybe you can just look up and to see what's the status of in your state and to see what would you like to do. So just like Louis said, everyone must do their part. For some, it's more than what others can do, but just as in the Civil War, someone will step up and pick up the flag before it hits the ground. It's within us all. Very well said.
Okay. All right, that'll be all for today. Sorry for skipping the joke because we were focusing on the content. The joke, yeah, we'll do the joke later.
Yeah, next time.
All right. Yeah, Jeff
Okay.
said, trust me, CRT won't be my son's school. Yeah. Way to go, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is not on the list, so most probably they are trying to do something, but yeah, you can look it up.
Okay.
Okay, great.
See ya.
So good to see you
Yeah.
and take care.
Have a good night and see you.
Yeah, have a good
on Monday.
weekend.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.